Welcome to Career and Leadership Real Talk, the no-nonsense guide for ambitious managers who want to have more impact and progress their career. I'm Pamela Langan, a job search coach and expert CV writer specialising in helping frustrated professionals land the jobs and pay rises they know they deserve.
And I'm Jackie Jagger, a leadership and mindset coach specialising in helping newly promoted and new to role leaders to avoid the dickhead trap and lead with confidence. Between us, we've helped hundreds of leaders and managers to find new roles, take ownership of their careers, and handle the challenges that job searches and leadership responsibility inevitably bring. And now we're joining forces to share with you what we know has worked for our clients.
Hello, and welcome to this week's episode. This, for us at least, is a really exciting one because this is our 100th episode. And when we started out with podcasting, we were dead keen to get to our first 20 because I think we'd read or heard somewhere that only 1% or 2% or some really small number get past 20 episodes. So we definitely did not think beyond and think to our 100th, and yet here we are. So Pam, what a ride it has been.
I know, I can't believe there are 100 episodes, but do you know what? It feels like 5 minutes since we started recording, and it's definitely something that we look forward to doing each week, isn't it? And then the more feedback that we get from people about the results that they've had just from listening to the podcast, it just blows my mind every single week. And then when we're looking at like 100 episodes, I'm like, oh my goodness, 100 episodes. People don't see what goes on behind the scenes, do they, to actually produce these episodes. But just sitting here and talking the way that we do, it's definitely highlighting my week, and hopefully our listeners feel the same.
Yeah, and one thing that we've never shared, we've always been really mindful of jumping straight into the topic and making sure that we keep these to a sensible length. So one thing that we've never shared is the story behind how the podcast came about. So I think before we get into our main topic for today, that one might be interesting for people to listen to, because the intent was never actually to set up a public podcast, was it?
No, it wasn't. But we're here, aren't we? And it just happened almost by accident, didn't it? And then it just became this thing, and we were like, we just need to get to episode 20. And then now it's a full-blown podcast, isn't it? So you share the story because you're the best at taking people through the story of where we started. We've known each other for quite a few years now, and we've worked on different projects and different things together during that time. And then we've become really good friends on the back of it. And it doesn't feel like work, does it, when we're doing this?
Not at all. So what originally happened was I had known for a while that I wanted to create a podcast. Loved listening to them, loved the value that I got from them, and was always felt like, yeah, that's something I'd love to do one day. And I listened to an episode of Faye Wallace's HR Coffee Time podcast, which, if you're not in HR or you don't know Faye, she produces, it's now a fortnightly, back then it was weekly, a podcast specifically for people who are in their careers within HR. And in this particular episode, as I was driving to work one day, she was talking about how the process she had gone to set up her own podcast. And she talked about, for people in HR, that you could set up an internal podcast as effectively a learning and development resource. And so I listened to that, and the cogs were whirring in my brain as I was driving. And I messaged Pam later that day and said, oh, do you fancy having a chat? And pitched this idea that Pam and I together could produce, so almost for an internal resource for HR and L&D teams, that we would be able to produce a podcast that would be a resource for people who wanted to progress in their careers, who were either in their first management role or aspiring to get promoted, that would really bring together both of our kind of backgrounds and expertise, and that we could do this together as a co-hosted podcast. And then we had the conversation to think and flesh out what types of topics and how that could come about. And how long were we on that call?
Our calls, I think once we get talking about ideas, our calls can be anything 5 minutes to 5 hours. No, maybe not 5 hours, but yeah, we like having a good chat, don't we? Which I think that's why the podcast works so well.
And that was definitely the case that day. Was we were just really inspired with all the stuff that we could talk about and coming up with the topics that could be for an internal resource. And yeah, at the end of that conversation, I was like, should we just do our own one anyway and just put it out there and make it public? And we then set ourselves, I remember we chose Halloween as our date to release the first episode, because we work well to a deadline. We enjoy knowing that we've got to get a project over the line. And it felt like we could make a bit of a game of it. And that would be a scary deadline to have to work towards. And yeah, here we are nearly 2 years later and on our 100th episode.
And it's funny as well, because we do the podcast together, and then on the back of that, we ended up collaborating on small placement stuff, and then Catalyst Careers was born. I think we're just constantly bringing all of our experience together, aren't we? And just creating these opportunities for people to work with us and really like access all of the good stuff, get inside of our brains and use it to progress their careers. And that's been amazing. And then on the back of Catalyst Careers, we've now got Catalyst Careers Club. So it just feels the last 12 months has been like a whirlwind, and recording the podcast alongside all of the stuff that we've been doing. It's been amazing. And I just feel so lucky that we found each other, that we came together through the different work that we were doing, and we got to know each other, and we were able to pool our resources and create this, because the feedback that we get is just unbelievable. Some of it has literally brought us to tears. It's so nice to see what people do with the stuff that we create, and it's great to be in this position to be able to do this and provide this, and to have the support from the listeners as well, who come back week after week because we can see the stats. So we are grateful that you are here and you're listening and sharing as well. The more you share podcasts, the more listeners, the more people that we can support.
Yeah, so a big thank you from us for any of you that have ever given us feedback, shared the action you've taken. For us, for me personally, certainly, it's incredibly inspiring when I hear from somebody who tells me what they've done with a particular episode, who talks to us about how they've negotiated a better package when they've applied for a new role, how they're using the episode on nailing your first 90 days to approach their new job and set their stall out in the right way, all of those things. So yeah, in a moment, what we're going to do is just share our top 5 episodes, which has been really hard to narrow down. But a lot of those is not necessarily even the most popular episodes that we've released, but they're the ones that have often had some of the most incredible feedback from listeners. But I just wanted to touch on, actually, before we do that, the Pam, you just said about the whirlwind of this year. And I think it would be remiss to go by without letting people know about the Balcony of Ideas.
Yes. Balcony of Ideas, where all of the good ideas come from.
So I was away earlier this year, and love, you will know if you listen to this podcast regularly that we talk about the power and the importance of reflection, breathing space, having time to think good quality thoughts. And so I went away in April of this year. Unfortunate that my parents have an apartment in Tenerife, has this incredible balcony overlooking the sea. And I would sit there in the mornings with my morning coffee, just sitting in the sun, no agenda, drinking my coffee, looking at the sea, just really enjoying the space. And one morning while I was away, I had this idea for creating what has now become the Catalyst Career Club. And I remember sending Pam voice notes. So we send each other mini podcasts via voice notes. I know they're a real Marmite thing, but we love them, to each other on WhatsApp. And I pitched this idea again to Pam of, we could do something like this. And Pam, you replied the next day saying,
yes, let's do it. Because literally we just when we bounce these ideas, like we're so much on the same page, aren't we? It's crazy that we actually, maybe it was faith that brought us together, because we're so much on the same page and we bounce these ideas and then we're like, oh my goodness, yes, like we need to do that. And literally two of us are true implementers. We implement. So we don't just have these ideas and bounce them around, like we actually implement them as well. So as you can imagine, we've got a list of lots of good stuff that's going to be coming soon, but we are just constantly bouncing these ideas. And I do have to add, while Jackie is on the balcony of ideas, I was in Liverpool where it mainly rains and is cloudy. But Jackie was providing the inspiration through sending the sunny pictures and the view of the sea and everything. So she was keeping me inspired while I was dealing with the rain.
And after I told you about the idea, I remember the next day you messaged me and you literally said, I was so excited, I couldn't sleep. So the ideas that came were huge. And I think it's interesting because I feel like that's what we do for each other, is we inspire each other to action. We inspire each other to have more confidence and to have a go with ideas and not to worry. Like, some of our ideas might be terrible. They might not work out. They might not be the best thing at all. But others, when they do start to get traction or start to work, then we run with them. And that's definitely something that I would really encourage as a listener for you to think about. Who do you have around you who can be that counterpart for you, who can encourage you, who will be your biggest cheerleader, who will go through the tough times and help you get back up again? Because that is just so, so important in your career. And we have that in terms of our working relationship. But I didn't always have that when I was employed. I'd certainly at times had it, but I didn't always have it. So yeah, if you don't have that or don't have enough of that, then who knows, maybe the career club is the place for you. But certainly I would say, if there's one learning that we've had from working together, for me, that would be it, is the value of just give things a go and have people around you who will inspire you to want to do that, and who you know will have you back, and who you know won't judge you if you try something and it doesn't work.
Yeah, and that is one of the main things I love about Career Club, because I have to say, like, my corporate career, like my employed life, was pretty lonely because I was fast tracking my career, and along the way I didn't really have that support. So I was trying the things just because, like, I was almost trusting myself. I did sometimes ask my mum, but she wasn't the best at providing career advice. So, like, Catalyst Career Club is that space that I wish I would have had, where I can go in and ask a question, where I can get the support, where I can ask experienced career coaches, what do I do in this situation? And sometimes just downloading those thoughts is the biggest help and the biggest or the easiest way to move forward, because once you get them out of your head, they never seem as much of an issue. So yeah, so Catalyst Career Club is the place to if you want to progress, lean on us, join in the fun. It is a really nice space to be. So I suppose we should talk about our top 5 episodes, shouldn't we? Our most favorite ones. I'll let you go first with your most favorite one.
Like I say, we've chosen these based on more so the feedback that we've had about the impact that these particular episodes have had, as opposed to the ones that have necessarily been most popular. So hopefully there'll be something in here that you might feel like, oh, yeah, that would be really useful listen. And the first one for me is the episode 67, which is about the difference between confidence and self-belief. And I know that this is an episode that has had real meaning for a lot of my one-to-one clients, as well as podcast listeners, where people feel like, I need more confidence. But in reality, when you understand and appreciate the difference between confidence and self-belief, then you will potentially take a different tack in terms of how you build your career confidence. So for me, the fundamental message from that episode is about understanding, is it that you have challenges with situational confidence, which can happen when you go into a new role, an unfamiliar environment, have challenges that are different than what you faced before, but that is different than a fundamental lack of self-belief. And what I talk about with self-belief is that it's that ability to trust yourself to be okay no matter what. So a lot of the work that I do with clients around self-belief comes from them recognizing, actually, I know that I can do a good job of my job, but I've got this knot of anxiety day in, day out. And it's not imposter syndrome in the sense of that I feel like I'm a fraud. I know I can do a good job, but I still curl up and die inside a bit if somebody says, can we have a catch up? Because I immediately catastrophize and go off on a route of that. So yeah, if some of that is landing and you're, oh, that might be me, then episode 67 would be my first pick. So what about you? What was your first pick?
So I think my first pick is going to be episode 96, which is a really recent one that we've done for dealing with disappointment in your job search, because this is one that I've shared with loads of people, because the moment the job market's a bit of a crazy time. So there is a lot of disappointment that is happening within people's job searches generally. So just understanding how to deal with the emotions and understanding that your job search isn't going to be easy. Sometimes you might touch lucky. As we say, it's usually a marathon rather than a sprint, but just giving people some different ways on how they can take control of their job search, and also like linking in with that confidence element as well, looking at the confidence building side of things. And also, which is, I think, is super important, is building resilience as you go through your job search, because if you don't build that resilience, it's going to get harder. And the more rejections that you get, the harder it will become. So it was about committing to process and detaching from the outcome. And if you're in job search mode at the moment and it's feeling tough, then this is definitely an episode that you should listen to, because we covered a lot in that episode. And it's one of those things where when you're job searching, you need to develop those skills really quickly, because we're not planning to job search all of the time. And when we're head down in our job roles, we're not thinking about job searching. But then all of a sudden, we need to start job searching for whatever reason that is. And then we've got to develop the skills fast. So this is definitely a starting point, and definitely one that we've had loads of really nice feedback about. So it's worth a listen, whether you're in job search mode or thinking about it.
Yeah, I think the timing could be great if you are going into a job search, or if you're maybe holding yourself back from job searching because you feel like it's going to be tough, it's going to be exhausting, and therefore you're avoiding starting a job search to try and protect yourself from that disappointment. If you listen to that episode and have some strategies to deal with the disappointment, then that can set you up brilliantly from the off.
Yeah. So what is your next one? Well, what was our number 3?
So our third one is episode 78, which is how to show you can think strategically. And I think the reason that this episode has been so popular is partly because, as we say quite often on this podcast, people get told they need to be more strategic, but they don't get any insight as to how to go about that. And I think the other thing with this episode is that we pinpoint there's a difference between whether you already have the skill of thinking and planning strategically. So if you already have it and other people are still giving you that feedback, sometimes it's about your communication. Sometimes it's about how you come across and demonstrate that you have that strategic thinking and planning capacity. So in that episode, we pinpoint the differences between strategic thinking and strategic planning. We give some strategies depending upon if you already are able to do those things, but other people are still giving you that feedback or not treating you as if you are a strategic thinker and planner. Then there's some strategies around that. But also, if that is more of a challenge, then there's some really good start points to start to build and communicate that strategic capacity that you probably already have, but maybe other people aren't perceiving.
Yeah, and I'm just also going to sneak in another episode, because I think that links in really nicely with our latest episode of developing executive presence. So while that wasn't one of our top 5 for today, I do think that one leads in quite nicely. So would also be worth a listen.
We're always doing this. We're always saying we'll pick 3 and we have 7, or we always have to narrow it down. But yeah, I like that little sideways pincer movement of bringing next one in.
Anyway, do you know what? Though it wouldn't be us if we didn't add in something extra. Like we do it in all the workshops, we do it in all of our one-to-ones. Like we're always like looking at what else is there, what else links in. So yeah, so it wouldn't be us if we didn't do that. Okay. The next one. So this is one that I chose, and this was episode 89, and this was about preparing for interviews, because obviously this is my thing. And if you listen to the podcast, you'll know that I'm always taking it back to interview prep, always thinking about that all important interview prep and preparing for that. And I think this one is a really key one, because you can do all of the good stuff, but when you get into that interview, if you've not prepared properly, then you're going to do yourself a disservice. And this episode, I thought, was one of the best ones that we've done on interview prep, because we've done a couple where we've touched on different parts of interview prep, but this one was really going into detail about how you can identify the key competencies and prepare your stories that are relevant for that particular interview, and also how you can practice your interview responses, and also strategies for building rapport and managing nerves, because I think we massively underestimate how much building rapport will help us get that job offer, but also how not managing our nerves can totally derail an interview as well. So there were some key tips around that as well. And I think one of the key things, I think one of the most important things, and something that's really new, a new thing that's happening within the world of interviewing, is when questions are provided before the interview, because this is a new thing. And when it happens to us, it's like a shocker, but you'd be surprised how many people don't actually prepare really well for those questions. So we gave an overview within that episode on how you can do that and do it well. And I think that will be a game changer if you do get the questions in advance, which lots of companies are starting to do that now. So it's just something to think about and have a listen before you get to that stage. It's always better to prepare in advance rather than on top of the interview.
And I created us a blog for the Catalyst Careers website last week that was based on that episode, because it has been so popular so quickly. And even having been a part of that episode as I was creating the blog, I was like, oh yeah, this is good stuff. This is great stuff. So yeah, do definitely go back and listen to that if you are going into a job search, or if you've had some challenges, because I think what I know that I've seen is people going for multiple interviews, and we always say don't ask for feedback, because so much of it is just going to crush your confidence. But if you've had several interviews, if you are one of those people that kind of keeps getting down to the last couple but never quite makes it over the line, then the advice in that episode is absolute gold for helping you approach that final stage and really plant your flag as, yeah, I am here, I'm showing up, and I am absolutely ready to knock this interview out the park. So yeah, great episode, that one.
Amazing. So what was our final one? I'm sure there's probably loads already. I'm thinking we've got so many that link into other episodes, but what was the final one that we decided on?
So the final one that we picked goes almost back to the very beginning. So this was episode 5, I think it was. This was before we even were numbering the episodes. We were just giving them titles. But this was way back from November 22. And actually, this is still our most downloaded episode. And I think it's because it struck such a chord. And this is how to cope when your boss is a micromanager. And I think the reason that this one has struck such a chord is because so many people are on the receiving end of micromanaging behaviors. And even at quite a senior level, I think there's that question then of, hang on, I thought I got past the level. I thought if I'm a head of or a director level, or that's what I'm aspiring to as my next thing, aren't I past this? Isn't micromanaging for when people are in their early career and they've got relatively inexperienced bosses? But in reality, a lot of people can be reporting into very senior people, and those very senior people still do not have the capacity to lead well. They don't have that awareness and understanding of how to build confidence in others. And so the approach they take is often based on how they can try and keep control, how they can try and keep oversight. So one of the big takeaways that we talked about in that episode was about really trying to not get frustrated by that behavior, although I completely accept that's easier said than done, but instead to really try and understand what is driving that behavior, what do they need, and how can you use that insight to start to build a relationship with them where that micromanaging boss can ease back. And it won't work in 100% of cases, but certainly if you know that you are on the receiving end of micromanagement, then that one is well worth a listen to just consider, okay, some of this might be what's going on in my situation.
Yeah, definitely. I think the micromanager one it's everybody's been in that situation, haven't they, at some point where they've felt micromanaged, or maybe even been accused of being a micromanager. And it's one of those things that can really affect your confidence when you're micromanaged, because you will just question everything. Because why is somebody micromanaging you? And I think that episode is one that we were constantly sharing, that episode, aren't we? Because it comes up for so many of the people that we speak to and the groups that we're in. So yeah, I also one of my most favorite episodes as well. And it was so exciting, wasn't it, when we were like up to episode 5, because it was like, we've done 5 episodes and now here we are on 100. So thank you for listening and sharing this special episode with us, because we've absolutely loved recording the last 100 episodes. It's such an achievement for us, and we're so glad that you've had so much from it. Obviously, keep that feedback coming. We love hearing it. We will be creating playlists so that you can access all of the episodes that we've talked about today really easily. And as always, if you need support to progress in your career, develop your teams, or you need some outplacement support, then please do get in touch and we can give you all of the options. We can have a chat with you, or we can send you the info over to have a read through. And we will be back next week with episode 101. Can you believe it? So have a great week and we will be back soon.
Exciting news from us. If you're an ambitious leader or manager earning 50k or more and you're ready to take your career to the next level, we have an opportunity for you. Introducing Catalyst Career Club, your secret weapon for unlocking career success. As a member, you'll get access to monthly live training sessions, exclusive job opportunities, and the ability to get personalised advice from us on your toughest career challenges.
We've helped thousands of driven leaders like you secure significant pay rises, land dream roles, and thrive in their careers. And now we want to support you in achieving your most ambitious career goals too. Membership is just $6.99 per month with no contract or tie-in. And as a special bonus for being our podcast listeners, you can use the code podcast at checkout to get your first month for just £1. Head over to pamelalangan.com/Catalyst Career Club to sign up now, and we'll see you inside.